and self-esteem. And of course, Dr. Poe, we've got about 6 minutes before we end this show for today. And let's give you, over the last 6 minutes, an opportunity to talk about some of those things dealing with self-esteem that we've not perhaps thought about, or perhaps you'd like to reinforce some ideas and et cetera. But let's give you that opportunity to do so.
Right. At one level, our self-esteem is a reflection of how we treat other people and how we treat ourselves. That if I mistreat other people and if I mistreat myself, I'm also causing sadness in the mind of God. And when I do that, I'm causing myself sadness also. I may not feel the sadness at a conscious level right off, but eventually that sadness is going to become grief, and that grief is going to damage my self-esteem. It's going to damage my mental health. It's going to eventually damage my physical health. Eventually that's going to happen. You know, we have so many hospitals in this nation. We prescribe and consume so much medication for anxiety, for depression, antibiotics for infection. And I think we need to ask why. We also have one of the highest suicide rates of any of the industrialized nations of the world. And if we look at it from a racial perspective, we discover that Caucasians have a much higher suicide rate comparatively than Afro-Americans. In 1997, there were about 31,000 suicides. But 27,000 of those were Caucasian, and 22,000 of those were Caucasian males. And I'm convinced that oftentimes suicide is a culmination, oftentimes, of persons who have been very self-centered and who have not been treating themselves or other people in the right way. And as a consequence of that, the self-esteem dropped very, very low. And when that happens, oftentimes a person is in a condition of despair, and then that leads to suicide. And so I think we need to take a good look at how we treat one another, how we treat ourselves, because if we mistreat people, it damages our self-esteem, and that has health consequences.
And so this whole issue of self-esteem is much greater, and I think you indicated that earlier, than we would think, that it can not only affect us from a psychological point of view, you're saying, but it also can lead to heart attacks, cardiovascular diseases, etc. And I don't think that many of us think of self-esteem from that perspective. I mean, when we have something wrong with our body, some physical ailment or whatever, we think that it's just diabetes, it's just, but we never sort of associate that with self-esteem.
That's true. And oftentimes it will manifest as depression, may manifest as headaches, may manifest as insomnia, or it may manifest as nightmares, disturbing dreams. It may manifest in the person's chronic fatigue. I believe fibromyalgia is a manifestation of low self-esteem, where people complain of hurting all the time. Oftentimes disturbed interpersonal relationships is a manifestation of very low self-esteem on both partners, sometimes on the part of one partner. So yes, this problem is very, very widespread and deserves more research. It deserves more attention in the psychiatric profession, because I think in my profession, we at this point have not seen how important this particular phenomenon is. It is extremely important. And I think maybe part of that is because my profession has been divorced to some extent from religion for quite some time, but there's a coming together to some extent now. And as I said, self-esteem is much more a spiritual problem, and we cannot medicate it away. Antidepressants do not solve the problem of self-esteem. It's a spiritual problem primarily. Exercise won't solve it. Dieting won't solve it. Just losing weight won't solve it. Changing your appearance won't solve it, okay? Self-esteem is only healed. Low self-esteem is only overcome. It is only healed in response to a person changing the way they treat other people and themselves. That is, only in response to trying to live a life pleasing to God. Now that's the bottom line, because see, only God, only the Spirit of God can heal a self-esteem problem. Only the Spirit of God can move me from low self-esteem to a healthy self-esteem. I don't believe that we can find, we're going to find a therapy that can substitute for the healing power of the Spirit of God.
And so, Dr. Poe, during this last minute and 23 seconds, you're saying in essence, that the individual who has low self-esteem really himself or herself has a choice that they can make in terms of their relationship with God. And no matter what that self-esteem problem might be, through the choice of closer relationship with God, they can overcome self-esteem. Is that what we're suggesting?
Yes, they can overcome very low self-esteem. And one of the major problems, the barriers to overcoming, is unforgiveness. Okay, people have been hurt in the past, they've been mistreated, they've been taken advantage of, and they have not forgiven. So they have a problem of unresolved of forgiveness. They have a problem of unforgiveness, and that involves anger, bitterness, and grief, and that also damages self-esteem. Also, the actress, the international actress and model Jennifer O'Neill recently come out with a book called Fallen Yet Forgiven. And she talks about how she had everything, money, fame, but on the inside she felt empty and damaged. And this is an example of how she had low self-esteem. But she did find Christ, and through Christ she has overcome.
Very good. And of course, Dr. Poe, let me, over the last 15 seconds that we have, thank you for bringing that excellent information back. And we're going to have you back to continue this discussion of self-esteem. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.